All right, guys, I want to know if you'll give me just around 17 minutes of your time. I think that's what this is going to take, but I'd like to share with you a chapter from a book that of an author that I came across probably about 2 years ago, which really changed my mindset on things. And it was called The Surrender Experiment by a guy named Michael Singer. And with that, he actually wrote a book before that called The Untethered Soul, and I've just started reading that one. And this really, the whole idea of surrender really changed my life drastically, completely changed my life because I was reading a lot of books as I often do. I just love philosophy. I love just diving deep into what everything's all about, why we're here, why we do what we do, finding purpose, whatever it may be. And through this, as I'm reading all these different books, there's a word that kept showing up over and over again, and that word was surrender. And it just resonated with me, and I said, that's it. That's what this is all about. It's about surrendering. It's not about giving up, throwing your hands up. I give up, I surrender, I surrender. It means just letting things go and not reacting to things the way you usually would. Because oftentimes these things that get thrown our way, even today, even now, the coronavirus, is surrendering to the fact that there's a coronavirus. It's surrendering to the fact that people are losing their jobs. It's surrendering to the fact that people are dying and people are getting sick. It's surrendering to the fact, you name it, ... And that's where it comes into play, where you start to just have this place of acceptance of what it really is. And when you can get to that place of acceptance of that, this is the reality. This is the reality of my life. That can I change something? Do I need to accept it? Can I remove myself from that situation? What are those things that you might need to do in order to make a change occur? But this became a very powerful thing. And this chapter that I want to read is chapter 17, and it's called Contemplating Death. And this is a big thing because when I read through this, it reminded me of what I think about all the time in general. You know, there was a time where I was thinking about death all the time. I don't think about it so much. But why this resonated with me so much is because I believe in this. I've thought about the aspect of thinking about death. And what I related it to was having known Holocaust survivors and having relatives that were in the Holocaust and died from the Holocaust, made me realize, I'm watching so many documentaries about the Holocaust, that I put it into perspective of what the people of the Holocaust went through, that the suffering and the torment and the pure torture through that just knowing that, is it as bad as the Holocaust? Whatever you might be going through, you know, personally, as I'm living in today's world, is it as bad as that? Is it death? Am I dead? Is this person dying? And it's a very powerful tool to use death in a way to really understand the importance of your own life. And I think that's a very important thing, because you go, listen, I have my life. And with that said, I'm going to read the chapter. It is truly a great cosmic paradox that one of the best teachers in all of life turns out to be death. No person or situation could ever reach you as much as death has to reach you. While someone could tell you that they are not your body, death shows you. While someone could remind you of the insignificance of the things that you cling to, death takes them all away in a second. While people can teach you that men and women of all races are equal and that there is no difference between the rich and the poor, death instantly makes us all the same. The question is, are you going to wait until the last moment to let death be a teacher? The mere possibility of death has the power to teach us at any moment. A wise person realizes that at any moment they may breathe out and the breath may not come back in. It could happen anytime, in any place, and your last breath is gone. You have to learn from this. A wise being completely and totally embraces the reality and the inevitability and the unpredictability of death. Anytime you're having trouble with something, think of death. Let's say you're the jealous type and you can't stand anyone being close to your mate. Think about what will happen when you're no longer here. Is it really all the romantic that you loved that your loved one should live alone with no one to care for them? If you can get past your personal issues, if you'll find that you want the person you love to be happy and to have a full and beautiful life, since that is what you want for them, why are you bothering them now just for talking to someone? It shouldn't take death to challenge you to live at your highest level. Why wait until everything is taken from you before you learn to dig down deep inside yourself to reach your highest potential? A wise person affirms, if with one breath all of this can change, then I want to live at the highest level while I'm alive. I'm going to stop bothering people I love. I'm going to live life from the deepest part of my being. This is the consciousness necessary for deep and meaningful relationships. Look how callous we get with our loved ones. We take it for granted that they're there and that they'll continue to be there for us. What if they died? What if you died? What if you knew that this evening would be the very last time you'd get to see them? Imagine that an angel comes down and tells you, straighten up your affairs. You will not awake from your sleep tonight. You're coming to me. Then you'd know that every person you see that day, you'd be seeing for the last time. How would you feel? How would you interact with them? Would you even bother with the little grudges and complaints you've been carrying around? How much love could you give to the ones you love, knowing it would be the last time you'd get to be with them? Think about what it would be like if you lived like that every moment with everyone. Your life would be real different. You should contemplate this. Death is not a morbid thought. Death is the greatest teacher in all of life. Take a moment to look at the things you think you need. Look at how much time and energy you put into various activities. Imagine if you knew you were going to die within a week or a month. How would that change things? How would your priorities change? How would your thoughts change? Think honestly about what you would do with your last week. What a wonderful thought to contemplate. Then ponder this question. If that's really what you would do with your last week, what are you doing with the rest of your time? Wasting it? Throwing it away? Treating it like it's not something precious? What are you doing with life? That is, death asks you. Let's say you're living life without the thought of death, and the angel of death comes to you and says, come, it's time to go. You say, but no. You're supposed to give me warning so I can decide what I want to do with my last week. I'm supposed to get one more week. Do you know what death will say to you? He'll say, my God, I gave you 52 weeks this past year alone, and look at all the other weeks I've given you. Why would you need one more? What did you do with all of those? If asked that, what are you going to say? How will you answer? I wasn't paying attention. I didn't think it mattered. That's all pretty amazing thing to say about your life. Death is a great teacher, but who lives with that level of awareness? It doesn't matter what age you are. At any time you could take a breath and there may never be another. It happens all the time to babies, to teenagers, to people in midlife, not just to the aged. One breath and they're gone. No one knows when their time will be, and that's how it works. So why not be bold enough to regularly reflect on how you live your last week? If you would ask the question of people who are truly awakened, they wouldn't have any problem answering you. Not a thing would change inside of them. Not a thought would cross their mind. If death were to come in an hour, if death were to come in a week, or if death were to come in a year, they would live exactly the same way as they were living now. There is not a single thing they carry inside of their hearts that they would rather be doing. In other words, they are living their lives fully and are not making compromises or playing games with them. You have to be willing to look at what it would be like if death was staring you in the face. Then you have to come to peace within yourself so that it doesn't make any difference whether it is or not. There is a story of a great yogi who said that every moment of his life he felt as though a sword were suspended above his head by a spider web. He lived his life with the awareness that he was that close to death. You are that close to death. Every time you get in the car, every time you walk across the street, every time you eat something, it could be the last thing you do. Do you realize that what you're doing at any moment is something that someone was doing when they died? He died eating dinner. He died in a car accident 2 miles from his home. She died in a plane wreck on the trip to New York. He went to bed and never woke up. At some point, this is how it happened to somebody. No matter what you're doing, you can be sure somebody died that way. You must not be afraid to discuss death. Don't get upset about it. Instead, let this knowledge help you to live every moment of your life fully, because every moment matters. That's what happens when somebody knows they only have a week left. You can be certain that they would tell you that the most important week they ever had was the last week. Everything is a million times more meaningful in the final week. What if you were to live every week that way? At this point, you should ask yourself, why are you living that way? Are you going to die? You know that. You just know when. You just don't know when. Every single thing will be taken from you. You will leave behind your possessions, your loved ones, and all your hopes and dreams for this life. You'll be taken right out of where you are. You'll no longer be able to fill the roles you were so busy playing. Death changes everything in a flash. That's the reality of the situation. If all these things can be changed in an instant, then maybe they aren't so real after all. Maybe you'd better check out who you are. Maybe you should look deeper. The beauty of embracing deep truths is that you don't have to change your life. You just change how you live your life. It's not what you're doing. It's how much of you is doing it. Let's take a very simple example. You've walked outside thousands of times, but how many times have you really appreciated it? Imagine a person in a hospital bed who has just been told they've got a week to live. They look up at the doctor and say, "Can I walk outside? Can I look at the sky just one more time?" If it were raining outside, they would want to feel the rain just once more. For them, that would be the most precious thing. But you don't want to feel the rain. You run and cover up. What is it that won't let us live our lives? What is it inside of us that is so afraid that it keeps us from enjoying life? This part is so busy trying to make sure the next thing goes right that we can't just be here now and live life. All the while, death is watching our footsteps. Don't you want to live before death comes? You're probably not going to get a warning. Very few people are told they're going to die. Almost everybody just takes a breath and doesn't know they didn't take another. So start using every day to let go of the sacred part, of the scared part of you that won't let you live life fully. Since you know you're going to die, be willing to say what needs to be said and do what needs to be done. Be willing to be fully present without being afraid of what will happen in the next moment. That's how people live when they face death. You get to do that too because you are facing death every moment. Learn to live as though you are facing death all the times, and you'll become bolder and more open. If you live life fully, you won't have any last wishes. You will have lived them every moment. Only then will you have fully experienced life and released the part of you that is afraid of living. There is no reason to be afraid of life. And the fear will fade once you understand that the one thing there is to get from life is the growth that comes from experiencing it. Life itself is your career, and your interaction with life is your most meaningful relationship. Everything else you're doing is just focusing on the tiny subset of life in the attempt to give life some meaning. What actually gives life meaning is the willingness to live it. It isn't any particular event. It's the willingness to experience life's events. What if you knew that the next person you'd see would be the last person you would ever see? You'd be right there soaking it in, experiencing it. It wouldn't matter that you were saying you just enjoy hearing the words, because it would be the last conversation you ever had. What if you brought that kind of awareness to every conversation? That's what happens when you're told that death is around the corner. You change. life doesn't change. The true seeker commits to life like that every moment and lets nothing stop them. Why should anything stop you? You're just going to die anyway. If you challenge yourself to live as though it were your last, your mind may come up with all kinds of suppressed desires. It may start talking about all the things that you've always wanted to do, and you may think you had better go do them. You will soon see that's not the answer. You have to understand that it is your attempt to get special experiences from life that makes you miss the actual experience of life. Life is not something you get. It's something you experience. Life exists with or without you. It has been going on for billions of years. You simply get the honor of seeing a tiny slice of it. If you're busy trying to get something, you will miss the slice you're actually experiencing. Every one of life's experiences is different, and every experience is worth having. Life is not something to waste. It's truly precious. That's why death is such a great teacher. It is death that makes life precious. Look how precious life becomes when you imagine you only have 1 week left to live. How precious life would be if there was no such thing as death. You'd waste every second of it because you'd figure you always have it. It is scarcity that makes things precious. It is scarcity that makes a simple rock become a rare gem. So death actually gives meaning to life. Death is your friend. Death is your liberator. For God's sake, don't be afraid of death. Try to learn what it is saying to you. The highest way to learn is to take each moment of your life and realize that what matters is to live it fully. If you live each moment completely, you will have a fuller life and you will not have to fear death. You fear death because you crave life. You fear death because you think there's something to get that you haven't experienced yet. Many people feel that death will take something away from them. The wise person realizes that death is constantly giving them something. Death is giving meaning to your life. You're the one who throws your life away. You waste every second of it. You get in a car, drive from here to there, and you don't see anything. You're not even there. You're busy thinking about what you're going to do next. You're a month ahead of yourself, or even a year. You're not living life. You're living mind. So it is you who throws your life away, not death. Death actually helps you get your life back to making you pay attention to the moment. It makes you say, my God, I'm going to lose this. I'm going to lose my children. This could be the last time I'll see them. From now on, I'm going to pay more attention to them and to my spouse and to all my friends and loved ones. I want to get so much more out of life. If you are living every experience fully, then death doesn't take anything from you. There's nothing to take because you're already fulfilled. That's why the wise being is always ready to die. It doesn't make any difference when death comes because their experience is already whole and complete. Suppose you love music more than anything else. You always wanted to hear your favorite classical composition played by your favorite orchestra. There was the dream of your life. Finally, it happens. You're there and you're actually hearing it. It completely fills you. The very first notes lift you to where you needed to go. This shows you that it only takes a moment to be absorbed in a transcendental peace. You really don't need more time before death. What you need is more depth of experience during the time you're given. That's the way to live each moment of your life. You let it fill you completely. You let it touch you to the depths of your being. There is no moment that can't do that. Even if something terrible happens, view it as just another experience of life. Death has made you a great promise in which you can find deep peace. The promise is that all things are temporal. They are all just passing through time and space. If you have patience, this too shall pass. The wise realize that in the end, life belongs to death. Death is the one who comes in his own time to take life from you. Death is the landlord and you're just the tenant. People say things like, he's living on borrowed time, or He got a new lease on life. From whom did he borrow the time? From death? Of course. Death is the one who comes to claim his property because it has always belonged to him. You should have a healthy relationship with death, and it should not be one of fear. Feel grateful to death for giving you another day, another experience, and for creating the scarcity that makes life so precious. If you do this, your life will no longer be yours to waste. It will be yours to appreciate. Death is an ultimate reality of life. The yogis and the saints fully embrace death. St. Paul said, "O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory?" Great beings don't mind speaking of death. Yogis have traditionally gone into graveyards and burning ghats to meditate. They sit there to remind themselves of the frailty of the body and the inevitability of death. Buddhists are taught to contemplate the temporal nature of things. It is all temporal, and death says this to you. So instead of getting lost in the normal mental chatter, why not contemplate the temporal nature of life? Why not think about something meaningful? Don't be afraid of death. Let it free you. Let it encourage you to experience life fully. But remember, it's not your life. You should be experiencing the life that happens to you, not the one you wish was happening. Don't waste a moment of life trying to make other things happen. Appreciate the moments you are given. Don't you understand that every minute you're a step closer to death? This is how to live your life. You live it as though you are on the verge of death, because you are. That's the end of the chapter. It's powerful in every level, just to keep this sort of idea within your mind of how important and precious life is, to do the things you want to do. And don't procrastinate and don't wait. And just know that to appreciate things when you go to places, when you do things, because that's what it truly comes down to. And that's what he talks about. But really, it's nothing new. There's no new lesson in this other than just to always what we hear is just pay attention. We were told to pay attention in class to our teachers. We didn't want to. This is math. This is English. I don't want to pay attention. But the word pay attention is what it means. And if we can, again, embrace this, and most importantly, just take action. Just do what it is you want to do and stop putting those things off to the side, thinking that someday I'm going to eventually get there and someday I'm going to eventually get around to it. Why not try it now? Why not say the things you want to say now? Why not do the things that you want to do now? I think these things are just extremely important and vital. And it's just like what we're going through with this coronavirus. I mean, it could almost be said in the exact same way. We're given this thing has presented itself upon us that can become scary and doubtful, and we don't know what it's going to bring. So it is in our best interest just to have the acceptance of this, surrender to this, and just do our best and try to have an appreciation of all the things that are around us constantly. All right. So that's a chapter from The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, who wrote a terrific book. I'm in the middle of reading it now. I read his second book, The Surrender Experiment, which opened up my eyes. Again, the idea of just to surrender to what life is going to present to you, whatever it may be. You can yell, you can scream, you can do whatever you want, but if you stub your toe, you can surrender to it or just blame and do everything else you want. Otherwise, you can what he talks about is relax and release. And these are the most important things to do. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And thanks for sharing. Spread the word. Spread it around. Let other people who are feeling anxiety, anger, whatever it may be, just hear things. Whoever you may listen to, because the importance of sharing and imparting certain truths are helpful for other individuals. And I think that's a good part on what this internet and everything else provides us, is the ability to share help, to help other people whenever we can in our own little ways, whatever they may be. Maybe you can donate, maybe you can't donate, but maybe you can share something today of importance that's going to help someone else. All right. Make it a great week. Take care.